What if I told you that a woman, beloved by her community, vanished one night, and no one has been able to explain where she went or what happened to her, even after a decade of searching? Tara Grinstead was a teacher, a beauty queen, and a friend to many. But one fateful night, she disappeared without a trace, leaving behind a trail of haunting questions that no one has been able to solve. Now, some might say it was a simple case of her running away. Others might argue she was just a victim of bad timing. But those answers? They're far too easy, and they don't account for the terrifying details that emerged during the investigation. Something much darker was at play, something we've still yet to fully understand. But the real question is, what if Tara Grinstead's disappearance isn't just a case of a missing person, it's part of something much bigger, something that could still be? Tara Grinstead was more than just a teacher. She was a pillar of her community. At 30 years old, she was known as a former beauty queen, an influential educator, and a woman who gave back to her small town of Ocilla, Georgia. In the close-knit community, where everyone knew everyone, Tara's sudden disappearance would send shockwaves that would never subside. Tara's life in Ocilla was ordinary in the best sense. She taught history at Irwin County High School, where she was well-liked by her students. A former contestant in the Miss Georgia pageant, Tara carried herself with grace and poise. But it was her dedication to her family, friends, and community that truly defined her. Every Sunday she could be found in church, actively participating in local events and giving back wherever she could. Tara had no known enemies. She was loved by almost everyone she met, and yet, on the evening of October 22, 2005, she vanished. It was a quiet Saturday night when Tara decided to attend a Halloween party at the home of her friend, a gathering she had been looking forward to. Dressed as a Native American princess, Tara was in high spirits, chatting with friends and having a good time. But by 11:30 p.m., she decided to leave. Her final moments were spent in conversation with her friends before she stepped out into the cool night air, heading toward her car. The last known contact with Tara came through a phone call to her younger sister, who she spoke with just before leaving the party. Tara told her sister that she would be home soon, but by the time her sister went to bed that night, Tara had never returned home, and no one could have anticipated the horror that would follow. The next morning, Tara's family began to worry. Her car was found parked at the end of her driveway, and the lights were on inside her home. Her purse, wallet, and keys were all missing, but her cell phone remained behind, unanswered, and seemingly abandoned. There was no sign of a struggle, no forced entry, and no indication of where Tara had gone. Tara had simply disappeared. No one knew where she had gone or who might have taken her. The investigation began immediately, but answers were elusive. The Irwin County Sheriff's Department, along with the GBI, Georgia Bureau of Investigation, began to scour the area looking for clues. Volunteers from the community joined in the search, combing nearby woods, fields, and roads for any trace of Tara. But despite their efforts, no significant evidence was found. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months, but the case remained unsolved. Tara's disappearance attracted widespread media attention, making headlines across Georgia. But as the weeks dragged on, the investigation grew cold. No ransom note, no calls, no sightings, nothing. The infamous theories began to emerge, some plausible, others far more speculative. Was Tara's disappearance the result of a random abduction? Or did someone close to her have something to hide? As the investigation progressed, one of the first people to come under scrutiny was Tara's ex-boyfriend, a man named Marcus Harper. They had broken up earlier in the year, and although they remained on relatively good terms, investigators began to wonder if the breakup might have led to something more sinister. However, despite his being questioned and his alibi checking out, there was no evidence linking him to Tara's disappearance. For years, the case remained frustratingly stagnant. The local community continued to hold out hope that Tara would be found, but as the years passed, the mystery deepened. In 2017, more than a decade after Tara's disappearance, the case took an unexpected turn. Ryan Duke, a former student of Tara's, was arrested and charged with her murder. He had previously been questioned in the case, but there had been no indication that he was a serious suspect. It wasn't until Duke's confession to a friend that authorities had a breakthrough. The confession led them to Duke, and after further investigation, he was arrested. Duke claimed that he had broken into Tara's home, killed her, and then disposed of her body. However, the details of his confession were inconsistent, and much of his story didn't match up with the evidence. DNA recovered from the crime scene, specifically from Tara's body, was crucial in finally making the arrest. But many questions still remained. Why did Ryan Duke kill Tara? What was his motive? Was he acting alone? The arrest of Ryan Duke in 2017 shocked many in the Ocilla community. For over a decade, they had lived with the mystery of Tara's disappearance, and now it seemed like justice might finally be on the horizon. But the case is far from closed. In 2019, Duke went to trial, and the courtroom drama revealed even more shocking details. Duke's defense team painted a different picture. They argued that there wasn't enough physical evidence to convict him, and the case became a matter of legal contention. While Duke's trial continued, Reddit users, especially those on threads like r/truecrime and r/unresolved mysteries, were quick to analyze the developments. Redditors dug through old evidence, revisited police reports, and offered up their own theories. Some believed that Ryan Duke was a lone perpetrator, while others speculated that there was more to the story. Some even pointed to Tara's ex-boyfriend, Marcus Harper, suggesting that he may have been more involved than initially believed. The case remains unsolved in many ways. Tara's body has never been found, and the true motive behind her murder is still a mystery. The community of Ocilla still holds on to the hope that one day the truth will come to light. But as Reddit threads continue to buzz with new theories and updates, one thing is clear: Tara Grinstead's disappearance is a case that will never be forgotten. The mystery continues to captivate the true crime world, where every new revelation only adds to the chilling unknowns that remain. While Tara Grinstead's disappearance has left a lasting impact on her community and her family, the case is still officially unsolved. Her story serves as a reminder of the fragility of life and the chilling reality that sometimes the people closest to us can disappear without a trace. But perhaps as time goes on, the key to solving this mystery will finally be uncovered. Keep following the case, and we'll be sure to update you as new details emerge. Weigh in. Elisa Lam's strange death at the Cecil Hotel continues to baffle and fascinate true crime enthusiasts everywhere. If this case sent a chill down your spine, give this video a like and share it with your friends. What do you think really happened to Elisa? Was it a tragic accident, or was something more sinister at play? Leave your theories in the comments below. We love reading your thoughts. Make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the most disturbing true crime mysteries. Elisa Lam was a 21-year-old student from Vancouver, Canada, who had arrived in Los Angeles in January of 2013. She was traveling alone, seeking adventure, and exploring the city she had long wanted to visit. On the surface, Elisa was a bright, energetic young woman with a passion for photography, writing, and blogging. She documented much of her life on her blog and social media, where she shared insights about her travels and experiences. However, beneath her bubbly, outgoing exterior, Elisa had struggled with mental health issues, including bipolar disorder. Her family and friends knew she had been working through these challenges, but they never expected her journey to end in such a tragic and mysterious way. Elisa checked into the Cecil Hotel on January 26, 2013, a place that had long been associated with dark stories and a sordid history. The hotel, located in downtown Los Angeles, had been the site of several suicides, violent crimes, and unsettling events over the years, giving it an eerie reputation. Despite the hotel's grim past, Elisa seemed to enjoy her stay at first. She was last seen on January 31st when she checked out of her room to meet a friend for a scheduled outing, but failed to return to her room. Her disappearance sparked immediate concern, as Elisa had been in regular contact with her family but had abruptly cut off communication during the last days of her trip. The hotel staff began to search for Elisa, and on February 1, 2013, the LAPD was called in to assist. The search initially focused on the hotel's common areas, and hotel guests were questioned. It wasn't until several days later that a more thorough search was conducted. During this search, Elisa's body was discovered in one of the hotel's water tanks, located on the roof. The discovery was chilling. Her body was found submerged in the tank, and guests had been unknowingly drinking and bathing with the contaminated water for days. The circumstances surrounding Elisa's death raised many questions. How did she get to the roof? Why was she in the tank? And most troubling of all, why had she not been noticed earlier? The discovery of Elisa's body in the water tank was only the beginning of a series of strange and unsettling developments. The most shocking moment came when surveillance footage from the hotel's elevator was released by the LAPD. In the video, recorded on the night Elisa disappeared, she was seen entering the elevator and behaving erratically. She presses multiple buttons, seemingly hiding inside the elevator, peeking her head out nervously and making strange hand gestures. The footage ends abruptly, with the elevator doors closing and Elisa vanishing from sight. The bizarre nature of the video, combined with her erratic movements and unexplained behavior, immediately fueled widespread speculation. Reddit users, particularly those on subreddits like r/armreddits like r/truecrime, quickly became obsessed with the case. Theories about Elisa's death began circulating rapidly. Some users speculated that she had been a victim of foul play, with some suggesting that someone inside the hotel had been responsible for her death. Others believed that Elisa's mental health struggles played a significant role in her disappearance, hypothesizing that she may have had an episode that led her to climb onto the roof and accidentally fall into the water tank. There were even darker theories, with users drawing comparisons between Elisa's behavior in the elevator and supernatural explanations, speculating that the hotel's dark history had something to do with her tragic fate. Over time, the investigation into Elisa's death revealed more unsettling details. The LAPD's initial response was to label her death as an accidental drowning. The authorities speculated that Elisa had climbed into the water tank herself, either intentionally or by accident, though how she had gained access to the roof remained unclear. There was no evidence of trauma to her body, and toxicology reports later confirmed that Elisa had no illegal drugs in her system, though some prescription medications were found, which was consistent with her mental health treatment. The lack of a clear motive, combined with Elisa's strange behavior in the elevator video, left many unanswered questions. The case sparked renewed interest in the history of the Cecil Hotel, with some Reddit users suggesting that its dark and mysterious past, filled with suicides, murders, and associations with serial killers, could have played a role in Elisa's death. One of the most significant revelations came in 2014, when the LAPD closed the case, officially ruling it an accidental death. However, online forums like Reddit continued to discuss the case, with new theories and information emerging regularly. Elisa's tragic death became more than just a news story. It became a case that defined the power of online communities to investigate and theorize about unresolved mysteries. As of today, Elisa Lam's death remains an open question. Theories continue to evolve, and the eerie video from the elevator still haunts those who watched it. The questions surrounding her death may never be fully answered, but one thing remains certain. The case of Elisa Lam left a lasting impact on the world, especially on Reddit's true crime community, where people continue to search for answers and share their thoughts on what really happened to her. The mystery of the Grimes sisters is one that has haunted Chicago for decades. If you think you've heard the most chilling part of their story, wait until you hear the theories that have come to light. Don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe for more unsolved true crime mysteries like this one. What do you think happened to Barbara and Patricia Grimes? Let us know your theories in the comments, and don't forget to ring the bell to stay updated on future videos. On December 28, 1956, two sisters, Barbara and Patricia Grimes, set out for a night at the movies. The girls, aged 15 and 13, lived with their parents in a modest home in the southwest side of Chicago. They were typical teenagers, full of energy, excited by the world around them. Barbara, the oldest sister, was lively and social, known for her bold personality, while Patricia was more reserved, preferring the quietude of their silent home more than solitude and comfort. They were close, despite their differences. They shared everything, from their love for Elvis Presley to their desire to spend every moment together. That evening they were going to see Love Me Tender, a movie starring the king of rock and roll. It was a special treat for the sisters, who were both huge fans of Elvis. Around 10:30 p.m., the girls exited the movie theater and began the short walk back home. The route wasn't far, only about a mile. They passed through familiar streets, the lights of Chicago guiding their way. It was a crisp, cold evening, but there was nothing out of the ordinary about their walk. Their mother had asked them to be home by 11 p.m., and there were no signs of any issues when they left the theater. But by midnight, when the girls still hadn't arrived home, their mother became concerned. She called their father, and together they began to search the neighborhood. After finding no trace of the girls, they contacted the police. The authorities were quick to respond, and a search was immediately launched. Flyers were printed, and the city was plastered with missing persons notices. Police combed the area, speaking with witnesses who had seen the girls leaving the theater. However, no one could recall anything unusual. It seemed as though they had simply vanished into thin air. It wasn't until several days later, when a key discovery was made, that the case took a darker turn. On January 22, 1957, nearly a month after their disappearance, the bodies of Barbara and Patricia Grimes were discovered in a field on the outskirts of Chicago, just a few miles from their home. The bodies were badly decomposed, indicating they had been there for several weeks. What was even more chilling was the state in which they were found. The girls had been murdered. There were signs of strangulation and blunt force trauma, but the exact cause of death remains unclear to this day. The police had no suspects, no witnesses, and no clear motive. As the investigation continued, several theories emerged, each one more chilling than the last. Was it a random act of violence? Was it someone they knew? Could their deaths have been connected to the entertainment industry? After all, the Grimes sisters were in love with Elvis Presley, and some speculated that the girls might have been approached by someone posing as a member of his entourage. Yet there was no evidence to back up this theory. Over the years, a number of people were considered suspects. One of the most prominent was a man named Edward W. Glinka, a Chicago resident who was known to have had interactions with the girls just before their disappearance. Glinka was initially questioned, but was never formally charged. A number of other leads also came to nothing. Despite extensive efforts, the investigation stagnated. What kept the case alive, however, was the public's fascination with it and the growing presence of online communities, including Reddit. Over the years, Reddit users have kept the case alive by discussing new theories, sharing old news clippings, and combing through police files. Some Redditors speculate that the case might have been mishandled early on, leading to the loss of crucial evidence. Others argue that the killer may have been someone close to the family, someone who knew their routine and could anticipate their movements. The true answers, it seems, are buried in the murky details of the case. Despite all the efforts, the murder of Barbara and Patricia Grimes remains unsolved, and the chilling mystery continues to haunt the streets of Chicago. What really happened that night in 1956? Why were these two innocent girls murdered, their lives cut short? And perhaps most unsettling of all, why has the killer never been caught? As of today, the Grimes sisters' case is still open, though no new developments have been reported. The lack of concrete leads or suspects has left the public and online sleuths struggling to piece together the final moments of their lives. The case, now over 6 decades old, continues to capture the public's attention, especially on forums like Reddit, where users continue to speculate and share their thoughts on what happened to the Grimes sisters. But the most haunting question remains: will we ever know the truth behind their deaths? The Villisca Axe Murders case is one of the most chilling and perplexing in American history, and the mystery still lingers. If you found this case as haunting as we did, make sure to like this video and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Who do you think was behind this gruesome crime? Share your theories. There's no shortage of suspects and possibilities, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the darkest corners of true crime. It was a warm summer evening in Villisca, Iowa, on June 9, 1912, when a tragedy unfolded that would forever haunt the small town. The victims were the Moore family: Josiah Joe Moore, a prosperous businessman, and his wife Sarah, along with their 4 children, Herman, Mary, Arthur, and Paul. Also spending the night at the Moore home were 2 young sisters, Lena and Ina Stillinger, who were the daughters of a local farmer. The 2 families were well known in the community, with the Moores being particularly active in their church and local organizations. The night began like any other. The families had gathered at the Moore household for an evening of relaxation. They went to bed after a quiet evening of conversation and reading. Little did they know, their lives were about to be violently and brutally cut short. The first unsolicited advice to readers not bothered to write Neighbor Peckham had the first indication that something was terribly wrong came the following morning. Mary Peckham, a neighbor of the Moores, was worried when she noticed the curtains in the Moores' home were still drawn. She went to the house and knocked on the door, but no one answered. Growing more concerned, she contacted Joe's brother, who arrived shortly that evening to report on the party's occurrences. The house was a gruesome crime scene. Every member of the Moore family, along with the two Stillinger sisters, had been brutally murdered in their sleep. The victims had been struck repeatedly with an axe while they lay in their beds. The killer had used a heavy axe to strike them in the head, leaving deep wounds. The victims' faces were covered with bedclothes, and the murderer had also covered the mirrors in the house with sheets. What made the crime even more disturbing was the silence. The killer had committed the murders without alerting anyone in the neighborhood, and there was no sign of a struggle. The initial investigation revealed that the axe used in the murders had been left at the crime scene, and there was no immediate evidence to point to a suspect. The police were baffled by the brutality of the crime, and it soon became clear that this was no ordinary case. It would go down in history as one of Iowa's most infamous and chilling murders. A timeline of events would show that the investigation unfolded in a disorganized and frustrating manner. The police initially questioned neighbors, friends, and family members, but there was little to go on. The killer seemed to have vanished without a trace, and for months no leads emerged. The case grew cold, and the small town of Villisca began to fear that the identity of the killer would remain a mystery forever. Over the years, numerous theories and suspects were discussed, including a traveling preacher named Reverend George Kelly, who had been in Villisca at the time of the murders. Kelly had been in town giving a sermon and was known to have a strange and unsettling personality. He was brought in for questioning, and there were suspicions that he might have committed the murders during his stay. Despite this, there was never enough evidence to charge him. Other theories surfaced over the years, suggesting that the murders could have been the work of a serial killer, or that the killer was someone who knew the family. Yet no one was ever arrested for the crime. The case remained unsolved for decades, becoming a cold case that captivated the nation. It was not until the advent of online forums and true crime communities, such as Reddit, that the case was re-examined by a new generation of amateur sleuths. Reddit threads began to pop up, discussing the Villisca Axe Murders, bringing attention to the long-forgotten case. Users from all over the world shared theories and analyzed the evidence, often scrutinizing the inconsistencies and unanswered questions in the case. One popular theory that emerged on Reddit involved the potential link to other unsolved murders across the country during that time, suggesting the possibility of a serial killer who had struck multiple times but had never been caught. In 2014, the case received renewed attention when a Reddit user posted a link to a 2011 article that revisited the investigation and its many flaws. That thread became a gathering place for users to discuss new theories and revisit the evidence. Some even suggested that the killer may have been a family member, possibly someone who had been close to the Moores but had kept their dark intentions hidden. Others speculated that the killer might have been a stranger who had randomly targeted the family, though this theory seemed less likely given the premeditated nature of the crime. The Villisca Axe Murders case remains officially unsolved, and many questions still linger. How did the killer manage to enter the house without anyone noticing? Why did the killer cover the mirrors? Was it a personal crime, or was it random? Could the key to solving this crime be buried in the details? Despite the investigation stalling for over a century, the case has maintained a haunting presence in the true crime community, and new generations continue to study the clues, hoping for the breakthrough that might finally reveal the identity of the Villisca Axe murderer. To this day, the crime remains a dark chapter in the history of Iowa, and the town of Villisca is still haunted by the specter of the unsolved murders. On Reddit and in other online communities, people continue to discuss, analyze, and revisit the case, hoping for justice. Though for now, the Villisca Axe Murders remain a mystery that refuses to be solved.